So we all know at this point all of the stuff going on between Steven Crowder and his wife. We had that very famous video that was released of an interaction they were having at their home where he was incredibly controlling and he didn't want to let her use the car to go to the store. And he was very manipulative. And of course, now they're getting divorced and it's a whole nightmare, legal battle, all that stuff. But the other thing we've learned is that the way Crowder treated his staffers was kind of ugly to say the least. Apparently, it was a workplace or is a workplace that's just rife with like frat boy, juvenile type behavior where he's showing everybody his dick and balls and doing these demeaning skits. And apparently he has massive, massive anger problems. And basically everybody who's worked with him feels like he's totally off mentally and is dealing with a lot of issues and very abusive towards his staff. So that's what we already know. Well, now we have, a new angle in this drama that just dropped. Steven Crowder, for a very long time, had a right-hand man by the name of Jared Monroe, or as they called him, Not Gay Jared. Now, as I always point out when we bring this up, the first thing anybody's going to think if you call yourself Not Gay Jared is, oh, he's gay. He likes to gargle dicks. Multiple at a time. On a daily basis. Like, Not Gay Jared. Okay, anyway, I don't want to get off on a side tangent here. Because funny enough, in this story, he actually is the victim. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Crowder and his new right-hand guy try to raise doubt about that. So anyway, apparently this guy, Jared Monroe, Not Gay Jared, he left Crowder's show like 5 or 6 years ago. And since he left, Crowder has put him through hell with all sorts of legal challenges and enforcing an NDA and trying to prevent him from working in most places in the industry and really doing lawfare against a former employee and trying to gag the former employee. Now, of course, the number one piece of speculation is like, well, what the fuck? What the fuck are you afraid of? Like, what are you hiding? Why is it so important that this guy can't utter a word about you in public and can't be in a similar field? And apparently this is Crowder's MO. This is what he does. He's vicious and he's ruthless against his former employees and honestly many times his current employees. So I'm going to play for you. Jared dropped this video the other day and he explains kind of what's been going on. He starts off in the video by talking about how in the 5 or 6 years since he left, he's been getting a lot of like legal notices from Steven Crowder's lawyers who are basically warning him, like, don't do this, don't say that, how dare you do that, and also sort of shaking him down. He can't make money for his family, and he's really in a corner, and he feels like he has no outs. So he comes out and releases this video. Let's watch a bunch of it, then we'll react.
These documents, an NDA. Some more context. I signed this separation agreement, an NDA, containing a strict and very broad non-disparagement clause many years ago. I voluntarily left my job after deciding I could no longer put myself or my growing family through the toxic and abusive work environment I had endured for years. This place was and is to this day a workplace rife with sexual misconduct, degeneracy, and aggression. The things I saw, the things done to me, and the things I witnessed my employer do to others were disgusting, shocking, and utterly indefensible. I have the receipts. This all took a serious toll on my personal health. To the point near the end of my tenure, the work environment had become so toxic that I had to be admitted into a heart hospital. And after many tests, I was ultimately put on anti-anxiety medication. This condition was something new to me. I had no history of it prior to my employment there and have never been treated for it since. Now, when I decided to resign, my wife was pregnant with our firstborn child. It was a terrifying position to be put in, but I absolutely knew that I could not be the husband or dad I was called to be for them in my current state. Something had to change, and if I couldn't change my work environment, then it was time for me to remove myself from it. I was fully aware that willfully resigning would mean I would forfeit any sort of severance. I trusted that God would provide. What I had not anticipated is how much it would cost me to quit. This is where my first experience with legal abuse began. Starting from the day I delivered my notice of resignation, I was put on the phone with company lawyers, and the good cop, bad cop coercion campaign to get my signature on an NDA was well underway. I was told many lies throughout this process. I immediately hired my own legal counsel, and by the grace of God, understanding my predicament, He even agreed to work for half of his normal rate. Even so, the legal fees immediately began to pile up. My former employer and his attorney argued I could not work in media anywhere in the world.
Let's just reflect on that for a second. So he makes him sign an NDA, and as part of the NDA, he can't work in media anywhere in the world. Well, that's what he does. That's what he did. That was his career. That's what he knows. That's where his skills are. Can't anywhere in the world. No media. So right off the bat here, you got to ask yourself, why, Stephen? Why would you do this? And should Steven Crowder and his company even be allowed to do this to a former employer? I mean, you want to talk about an unfair system. You want to talk about an abusive contract. I mean, this is brutal and vicious. And I think most reasonable people would say Steven Crowder and his company should be in no position whatsoever to tell this guy you can't work in this entire fucking field the rest of your life.
My former employer and his attorney argued I could not work in media anywhere in the world, and most certainly not in the United States for 2 years.
You're going to see, he's about to explain. Then they kept adding time to it. Watch.
This is not because I had voluntarily signed some sort of non-compete in my original employment agreement. It was because they decided a non-solicitation clause that was in said original agreement would retroactively be interpreted as the broadest and strictest non-compete one could draft. They told me my Twitter account, another potential lifeline to future work, which I'd owned and been the sole manager of since 2009, was to be turned over to them on the argument that it was somehow their intellectual property now.
That's a real dick move. Look, I work in this business, and if somebody who's an employer or somebody who you're like an independent contractor with, if they try to tell you that Twitter account that you created before you were even with us, that's your own thing, we now want to take it when we part ways, that is like, it's astonishingly entitled. And again, it's like, why are you doing this? Why are you being so vicious? Why are you punishing him? Like, it's inconceivable. If somebody were to say that to me, somebody who either I worked for or I was an independent contractor with, if they were to say, now you got to hand over your Twitter account that you had even before you were with us, it'd be like, who the fuck do you think? Of course not.
Presumably to keep me from working even further, my former employer even tried to claim my personal production equipment, gear I had owned for years prior to working there, as company property.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
After producing every receipt to validate my ownership, a vicious lie that I stole from the company was born and disseminated by my employer. By the way, breaking their side of this bogus mutual non-disparagement agreement. I have those receipts as well. All I simply wanted to do was peacefully leave. It was clear by my employer, though, that this was not only unacceptable, but that I needed to be punished for doing so. Being bullied on each of these terms, and many more, fighting for my basic freedoms to leave and provide for my family, immediately sent me into legal debt. I did not want to sign anything, mind you. But the negotiations with my former employer left no question that without a signed NDA, my guaranteed silence, I would undoubtedly be harassed well into the future. No matter if there are future claims against me for where I worked or what I did or what I said were legitimate or not, it didn't matter. It would cost me thousands and thousands to fight back, and they knew that. I had to make a deal. With nothing but a small savings account and my last paycheck, I had to accept the deal I could afford. It's very important to note here that, where is it? It's here. I was not paid a single dollar for its consideration. Which brings me to what you might be asking next. What was the reason I did sign this? And again, as a man with his first child on the way, the small victory I got from it. The primary reason I signed the NDA was for a small carve-out in the non-compete clause, which allowed me to freely seek employment using some of my skill sets at another specific company. At least I could feed my family. That provision, however, was a lie. And upon starting my new job at the new said company, I was giving another one of these, a cease and desist, and was promptly, unlawfully terminated from that position.
Jesus Christ, man. He's literally just not letting him move forward with his life.
I added thousands more to my legal debt trying to fight back. My wife was very pregnant by this time, and without a financial safety net for groceries and a baby crib, much less a legal fund to file a countersuit, I simply had to let it go, trusting God had a plan. To that point, I want to say that I'm happy to report that he did have a plan, and what was intended for evil, God used for good. and it took me years to pay off my legal debt. But the story of God's faithfulness in my life became a very large part of my testimony, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunities that He gave me. And yeah, it's a story for another day. But back to this. While my supposed non-compete expired after 2 years, unfortunately, the most egregious part of my NDA, the part that silences my free speech, has no expiration. While NDAs are classically used to protect trade secrets, unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, they are too often used to protect disgusting, unlawful activity and many forms of abuse. We see examples of this all the time. Powerful people and their attorneys routinely use NDAs to silence victims in order to remain powerful people. Free speech matters. Matters a lot to me, and that's not just a t-shirt slogan. It really matters. And these kinds of NDAs right here, stemming from this, are unquestionably unconstitutional. I will not live with the burden of this unconstitutional NDA over my head for the rest of my life, especially when information I have can be used to aid other victims escape their own abusive situations, which is the context for which this former employer feels they caught me breaking my agreement. Let me be clear, what I'm afraid of is legal harassment in perpetuity, not the truth. Only one side of this ordeal is spending a fortune to hide truth and punish anyone who dares speak up for themselves or other victims.
Remember some of the things we already learned. Some of the things that other people who worked for, a number of people who worked for Crowder have come out and had the same stories. Apparently he when Jared was sleeping, Steven Crowder teabagged him. You can't do that. This isn't fucking a college frat house. Even in a college frat house, when you're all drunk, don't fucking do that. You're a boss at a company. This is your employee. And again, the laundry list of sorts of stuff that was going on, it was gross. So anyway, now he's going after Steven Crowder. And I don't know, my guess is trying to get some damages or something for the years and years of legal abuse. And so this is Jared's side of the story. Now, let's go to this guy who's Steven Crowder's new right-hand man, the new not gay Jared, not gay Steve, or whatever his name is. I don't know this fucking guy's name. This guy's a total hanger-on little fucking Crowder sycophant. Lord only knows what this guy's doing with Steven Crowder behind closed doors. Anyway, as per usual, Steven Crowder just, I'm going to go on the offense. Now, of course, he's not there, but he has his little first mate go out there and make the argument. But here we go. So now this is them firing back. By the way, look at how sloppy and fucking messy and dirty all this shit is. For the longest time, we thought on the left, why are we always disorganized and a mess and at each other's throats, and every lefty hates every other lefty, and certainly in the media space, it's just it's a lot of nastiness going on. But then the right decided, we're about to one-up you motherfuckers. We're about to get even dirtier and uglier and nastier. We're going to be slitting each other's throats. You guys remember the whole thing with Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire offered Steven Crowder a contract for $50 million, and Steven Crowder went out there and pretended like it was exploitative and he's a victim and he's going to stop that. I'm a hero. I'm a hero. Who can live on $50 million? So now, anyway, they're going to fire back at Jared. We'll watch some of this, and then we'll give conclusions.
He asked you to contribute money for a lawsuit that did not exist, unless he's had a lawsuit that he would like to file, which he indicated maybe that was the case. We had not sued Jared. We simply asked Jared to knock it off. We'll get into the timeline of that.
I wasn't suing him. I was just sending him cease and desist, and I was just telling him, don't take this job, don't do that, don't open your mouth, don't do anything that might reflect negatively on us. 6 fucking years after you already left. What's unreasonable about that, bro?
But Tuesday, March 26th was the day that he chose to release his video. I wonder if it had anything to do with Wednesday, March 27th being the 5th day of mediation between Steven and Hillary.
That's his ex-wife, who they're going through a divorce thing now.
Why release it the day before mediation? Mediation's a great opportunity for people to come together and resolve their differences peacefully. This is the 5th day. If you want to do some research on how many days it normally goes on during divorces, you can. It's not 5. Here's the timeline. On October 27th, 2023, we filed our original Rule 202 petition that Jared mentioned. Rule 202 petition is basically saying, hey, we're serious. Please knock it off and tell us how far this went.
Knock what off and how far what went? He doesn't work for you anymore. He's not an employee. He's been gone for fucking years. You shouldn't have dick to say to him. He should be able to live his life, say whatever he wants, do whatever he wants. 6 years. And we sent him a legal notice because we're really reasonable. And we said, sir, stop doing all the things that you're doing because you're a human being. How dare you? It's amazing. It's amazing. They released this video and thought, aha, we got him back. You look like petty little freaks. Fucking vultures and parasites. Chewing up and spitting out everybody who worked for you because Steven Crowder can't keep his fucking dick and balls in his pants because he's a clear closet case and a self-hater.
October 30th, we sent a cease and desist. At that time, October 30th, 2023, all Jared had to do was respond in writing saying that he was going to knock off what he was doing. He was going to stop violating his agreement that he voluntarily entered into. He chose not to.
I can't. All right. I literally can't listen anymore. I can't. What? The employee who we had 6 years ago, who we tried to fucking gag multiple times and sent a number of legal notices to, trying to intimidate them into silence. What? Now he thinks he has the ability to speak? 6 years after the fact? What are you hiding, Stephen? Look, I don't care what the field is or the industry that we're talking about. 6 years? 6 years after he left. And you're still sending legal notices? I don't care if homie makes up stories and drags your name through the mud. Well, I thought you were the free speech. Unless you say anything negative about me and show everybody I'm a closet case. Then I'm going to sue you from now until the end of time. 6 years later after you left. Okay, so they go on to say, the argument made by Skipper here, he goes on to, not gay David, he goes on to say, actually what this is a scheme. It's a plot by not gay Jared is now working with Hillary, who's the ex of Steven Crowder, and they're in cahoots to try to take down Steven. He makes it seem like they're evil mustache twisting villains, nefarious people behind. We'll take this guy down. Or Hillary knows some deep, dark secrets, and she has the right to expose them. Jared knows some deep, dark secrets, and they have a right to expose them. And Mr. Crowder was a little bit out over his skis, trying to gag everybody and intimidate them and use lawfare to try to force silence, ruin people's lives, to try to force silence, and they fucking had enough of it. And they got together, and they started talking, and they realized this guy was a real abusive asshole. Maybe I should tell my story, and you should tell your story. Maybe we should try to get some legal remedy to the fact that we've been fucking harassed by him for years. So it's some nefarious plot where they're working to wrongly and nefariously smear his name. Or they got together and decided, let's tell the truth. And let's get some compensation for the fact that he's ruined our fucking lives. So in their telling of the story, Steven Crowder is an angel. He's done nothing to anybody. But I'll say to you, this is the final thing I'll say to you. Why should I believe anything coming from the person and the company that puts incredibly strict NDAs and non-compete agreements and legally binds people and tries to keep enforcing provisions 6 fucking years later? On that alone, you have proved yourself to be incredibly unreasonable. And authoritarian would be a good word for that. So why should anybody believe a goddamn fucking word you say? Look, I have a show. This is what I do. There's some people who work for me. I would never imagine in a million years even making somebody who works for me sign an NDA. That's insane. But he not only did that, 6 years fucking later, he's still threatening him and sending legal notices and cease and desists. Who the fuck do you think you are? So I've seen all I need to see. I'm sure Jared's telling the truth. I'm sure Hillary's telling the truth. I wish them the best, because the fact of the matter is, even just based on what he's done in front of the scenes, can you imagine what it was like working with this motherfucker behind the scenes? Could you imagine? This moody, over-the-top, repressed, closet case who's abusive psychologically. We've already seen endless evidence of that with all the people who used to be on good terms with him coming out being like, you motherfucker don't even understand this guy, man. So, not gay Gregory. I hope it's worth it. By the way, really looking forward to the day where not gay Bob here leaves and he's got all the stories in the world about Steven Crowder, right? Because that's going to happen too. Because there's a trend with people, and one person comes out and says X, Y, or Z, it's whatever. By the time you get 2, 3, 7, 12, all coming out saying the same thing, all these bridges will be burnt. That's for damn sure. So, anyway, I wish Jared well. I wish Hillary well, even from just the things we know. And by the way, guys, it's got nothing to do with politics. Put the politics aside. If Steven Crowder was a lefty host and we had all these stories, my reaction would be the exact fucking same. Okay, it's not about that. Any person who's willing to force their employee to sign a non-compete or an NDA and then try to enforce it 6 years later and ruin their life and limit their employment opportunities, all this stuff, that's all I need to know. You're a fucking scumbag. That's what you are. By the way, little twist at the end here. Apparently Matt Brunig, very intelligent socialist guy, academic. He does a People's Policy Project. I think he's now working with Not Gay Jared, and they're filing a claim at the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, for the abusive practices of Steven Crowder. So now the NLRB might be getting involved, which is awesome. So can't wait to see how this unfolds. It ain't going to be pretty for Crowder, that's for damn sure, no matter how much he tries to spin it as a nefarious conspiracy trying to take me down, bro, or it's people telling the truth, and they got a hell of a lot to say. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.